All right, we're live. Episode 83, This Life in Tech. I'm Jason.
And I'm Dan.
I still have a little bit of a light problem.
Dude, if only you understood technology.
Yeah, I know, man. I know. What are you going to do, dude?
Maybe it's because it's not an Apple product. If it was an Apple product, Dr. Ken could come out here and help you.
Oh, the magic earbuds?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like the magic underwear for Mormons, right? The magic earbuds.
Speaking of that, which is so funny, yeah, I know you've heard me talk about my my one buddy before, Gene, who used to work over at Good Technology.
Mm-hmm.
I'm using a pseudonym for him because, you know, I don't know. So he's now over at Google, and he's one of the directors of engineering on the Android and Chrome product line.
Mm-hmm.
And he's all like, Google this, Google this, Google this. And I'm like, because he was such an Apple fanboy about everything. And I'm like, dude, someone is drinking the Google Kool-Aid finally. He goes, you don't understand. The collaboration suite and G Suite is this, it's this. And I'm like,
I don't understand.
Yeah. I mean, good guy. And he's just like, he goes, and he is a really, really smart guy. All right. And he's like, dude, I feel so dumb there. Like, it's overwhelming. I'm like, yeah, it's, you know, one, it's a cult. So, I mean, it's a good cult to belong to, but I mean, just like Apple, it's a cult. Now he had never gone to work for Apple. He almost did, but now he's over at Google, and like the amount of stuff, and he's like telling me like all these things that he's doing now. And, you know, I'm like, yeah, guess what? There's not a whole lot of people that can, you know, you're a director at Google. That's a pretty high position. And yeah, you're going to see and learn and do things. This is why a lot of people, that even if they last 3 years at Google, they're able to go and do some really big things later. So
yeah, if you look at a lot of the newer, this light's bugging the shit out of me, man. God damn it, dude. Why did I put this building facing east? I don't know what I did, man. I'm going to have to call him back and have me move this building. But anyway.
Dude, like I'll put in a word with the big guy upstairs. I'll have him change the sun direction for you.
No, dude, I'll just call the company and they'll bring the machine back out. They have like a walk behind hydraulic forklift, and it just comes in and it picks the building up. That's how they got it here.
Yeah.
I'll just have them pick it up and turn it. Anyway. Like my fucking blinds aren't working now, man. Like I don't get it. Whatever. A lot of the new spin-offs that are, you know, maybe not product-wise leading, but in terms of innovation of technology, there are a lot of spin-offs from Google, which you don't see with Apple or Microsoft. I mean, they're kind of, well, they are monolithic in and of themselves, purely.
Well, I think that was probably the brilliant thing also that Google has done by going to Alphabet and then making all these other separate entities.
Yep. And,
you know, they just, I mean, Google promotes their incubator. I think it's, you know, I know it's not what we're looking to talk about, but I mean, I guess in some ways it is, because, you know, the amount of innovation that Google is really trying to promote is, I think, is just what a lot of big companies should really be trying. BlackBerry used to do that. You know, they had their whole BlackBerry Ventures. And, you know, I think Google is really putting a lot of that into that. Samsung does a lot with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't even know. I honestly don't know if Microsoft or Apple has something like that, because I've never heard of anyone talking to them about these kind of things.
Well, you know, it's really only like the founders, so to speak, right, that ever go off and do anything of significance or note. The rank and file, even up to a director, you never really hear about them going off and starting something else. On the other hand, it's super common, like in the gaming industry. There's tons of producers and game directors and game designers and even programmers that come up through a big AAA studio and then go off and do their own thing. I mean, that's happened a ton at Blizzard, for instance.
Yeah.
So it's super common in that vertical. And, you know, I wonder, and this is kind of a segue to what I wanted to talk about, at least for a little bit. I wonder if it's because these other monolithic companies don't have any type of even pseudo co-op model. I mean, if you're in there innovating, you get nothing out of it. What do you get out of it other than saying, well, I did that? Your name's not on the product. You don't financially benefit from it as far as I can tell.
You know, I think it's probably closer to what you said than not. And probably the biggest thing, at least to me, companies become so involved with just themselves as an entity rather than its people.
Yeah.
And when you're not about your, like, I'll just use the whole Richard Branson stuff, which is why one of the ways in which I am as a leader. If you care about your people, then they will take care of your customer, right? If your focus as the leader is the customer, then who's taking care of your people? Not the customer. The customer's not taking care of your people. Take care of them. Then they will take care of your customer, and your customer will take care of your your shareholders.
Right. So I'm going to talk about it now. That's exactly what I saw happen at Blackphone.
Yeah.
Silent Circle. You know, when I started there, not only through you, but through everybody else, the culture was of, look, man, we're all going to innovate as much as we can, and we're all going to benefit from it.
Yep.
Either because we're fulfilling the vision and the mission, which we all bought into because we're here, but you're going to financially benefit from it too. And then when that culture started to shift, when the shadow government came in, it all just became conflict, and nothing ever got done.
Very true. And
now they're liquidating their assets.
Oh yeah, they're done, toast.
Marsha opened up that letter and she's like, "Are you getting sued for talking about something?" I'm like, no.
You know, it's so funny because, like, hey, they still owe me money from my severance, right? From all the stuff being laid off. And I'm like, I was like, hey, they could, as soon as they stopped paying on my, they broke the contract.
That's right.
You know, but, you know, am I putting anything in for this creditor stuff that they got? I won't see a penny. I won't see a penny.
No, I'll lose more money buying the goddamn postage.
Yeah.
So anyway, so this is the tie to that. Check this out, man. So, you know, there's a really strong push for open science, open access publishing.
I mean, isn't science universal anyway?
What's that?
Isn't science universal?
Well,
what is closed science?
Well, let me give you an example. So Elsevier, the giant publisher, right? Super high impact journals, whatever, right?
Right.
You know what their gross profit is right now?
Oh, I mean, you told me off air, but I'll.
Yeah, you gotta pretend, cocksucker.
Let me guess. Is it like 73%?
It's exactly 73%. How could you know? 73% gross profit, dude. Woo. Do you know how much the editors and the reviewers get? Zero.
Well, yeah, because we've kind of talked about that before. I mean, they're just these people that are hoarding knowledge and asking you to pay for that. Dude, I don't even know what to say. It's something along those lines.
Well, and here's the devil's bargain. As an author, I can either publish it the traditional way, which means you as the reader have to pay like $50 to get the article, or I as the author can pay the publisher $3,000 so that you get it for free.
All for an online journal, right?
Let's just say a PDF. I mean, it's not hard copy. You're not getting a magazine shipped to you.
Right. I mean, it's right. It's an online subscription where there is basically no real what would be the word I want to look for here?
Well, there's no overhead. I mean, you're not
right. There's no overhead. There's no nothing. I mean, it's just I'm providing you a data warehouse.
That's right. Yeah, for bits. It's just bits. Yeah. $3,000 I would have to pay. So how did they get to the decision of $3,000? Well, first of all, the market will bear it because everybody figured out how to just bake it into the grant. But what if I don't get grants because I'm not at a big institution? Right. Well, I can't pay. So then I either don't publish with them which skews my index because I don't get the impact factor, which gets looked at when you're getting interviewed somewhere else, or I just don't publish it at all. So that's why, man, over this last year, I've been doing this experiment. And so far, I've had really good success with it. Maybe it's a good check-in time. So I really haven't published too many like traditional papers this year so far in 2018. But at least once a week, I've been publishing an essay to the school. And dude, I've had way more conversations with people based on that stuff than I've ever had with a traditional publishing route. And second to that is using preprint servers. So it's like a listserv. You just put your paper up there, it gets categorized, and it's more of like a market peer review rather than a couple people judging whether or not they're going to allow you to publish it in the journal. I don't have a problem with peer review, but the science on how that process is skewed, it is almost bigger than the science of the science being judged by peer reviewers. Because why wouldn't it be, man? There's humans involved.
That's true.
I mean, of course it gets corrupted.
I mean, it's certainly not going to be, monkeys involved, but
right. Well, to me, it's a perfect application of AI.
Right.
But in the meantime, what do? I don't know, man. 73%, and you're not profit sharing at all.
It is interesting to me that no one says. I mean, they just accept the model. Like, why don't they? If you're having to pay for this subscription, like, at what point is it okay for you then as a publisher, right? Or as the author, they're making 73%. What percentage of your publication should come back to you since they're providing the advertising and all that kind of jazz? 5%? 10? I mean, opposite of an agent, right? Because an agent typically takes 5, 10, 15%.
Right.
But you're the one doing a lot more of the work in that particular case. This is you're doing the work up to that point for publication, and then it's staying there for them forever.
Well, what's always worked in fiction from magazines, at least in speculative fiction. So I wrote horror and sci-fi. The publisher paid a flat either cents per word or cents per page. And that was it. But you got paid.
Yeah, you got something.
Yeah. And so you knew up front, this publisher pays. If it was a better known publisher, maybe I'm making numbers up, and I haven't worked in fiction for over 20 years. If it was a well-known magazine, maybe you got 10 or 15 cents per word. If it was a lesser known, you got 2 or 5 cents per word, right? But the lesser known publishers also didn't take longer pieces. They took, let's say, short stories. So, you're talking about maybe 5,000, 10,000 words. So it's an economy of scale, but as you worked your way up through those publishers and you developed a brand as an author, you were able to earn more money. But that should be a logical progression because you're moving up the competence hierarchy, right?
Yeah. Well, that's funny to talk about that, which is people talking about, it's not people saying in Congress they can't live off $173,000.
Oh,
I make $8 and whatever cents an hour. One of you has more skill than the other.
They're different jobs. I mean, what do you got? You could compare working at company A and company B that exist in the same vertical and produce similar products. You can compare that.
Yeah. But it's just funny to me. All these people are like, you can't live off of minimum wage. You're not supposed to. That means you have no skill, and you were never supposed to try to raise a family off of minimum wage. Those are college and entry level positions.
This notion that I should have more at the expense of you having stuff is just catastrophic. Well, it is catastrophic historically. I mean, look at Russia.
Yeah,
it didn't work too well for them. Yeah, I mean, I'm all for rewarding effort. I'm all for a universal minimum income. But
yeah, I kind of look like Starship Troopers. I'm perfectly fine with that type of a model.
But a minimum wage doesn't do good for anybody. That's an artifact of the Industrial Revolution.
Yep.
And we're well past that.
Oh yeah. And so, so we're getting back on. It just happened to blip in my head when you mentioned that. So you've got all this documentation at El Salvador and a bunch of others. How do you feel that the fact that just to access our show is you got to do it through HTTPS?
That's actually an interesting question.
It's secure.
Yeah, the pipe itself is, man. But I don't know that security exists in a way where it's preventative to some segment of the population. You know what I mean? It's normalized to the point where it's not even HTTPS anymore, because all of Google services are by default HTTP and only HTTPS now, right? They have been for a while.
Well, I believe the biggest reason is so that way, because it's a secure connection, the providers that are getting you to that don't know what you're actually looking at. So it's taking away from the Comcasts of the world to be able to provide their own content searches,
right,
and provide advertising. It's a way to remove that. But it was just
no, it is. It's a fair question. I think I would argue, if as I'm thinking through it, that because it's so normalized, it's like it doesn't exist. I don't know that it exists for the express purpose of, let's say, creating privacy.
But let's say if everyone was secure in every which way, then and therefore privacy is just embedded in everything. It's no longer being thought about.
Well, I would argue that there's a material difference between security and privacy.
Well, there is, but
there's a relationship, but they're not the same thing, certainly.
Right. I mean, you can't have privacy without some type of security, but you can have security and no privacy. I mean, it's Facebook. I
don't know. There's a small point you could argue and say that you can have privacy without security, because you can just not have information. If you don't have information,
right? But that's the most secure thing.
Yeah. Well,
it's connected to the computer, right? So that's the most secure.
Yeah. But that's also why it becomes important to. This is something that bothers me when people say, "Oh, it's just semantics." Well, fucking semantics matter. That's why we have semantics as a discipline. Yeah. Jesus Christ, what you say has meaning, and what you're trying to mean matters.
Yeah.
So delineating between security and privacy matters. If it's normalized to the point where it's no longer really doing what it was doing, particularly in this context, I would argue that it's not as if we went into like a signal chat. You know what I mean?
So are you meaning it in a direction to where you had to invite the person in? Okay.
Right. Right, because even though it's HTTPS right now, anybody can watch this. In fact, anybody could join if they wanted to.
Well, but you have to accept.
No.
Oh, you've got it set up to where anyone just clicks on? Oh, okay.
Yeah, they could.
We could always kick them out, so.
Nobody's ever joined, so I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if you can right click and boot somebody. I've never really thought about it. Yeah, you're cutting hairs, and it would take some thinking through that. But yeah.
Well, it's just because you had put out there on Twitter, and then this gets into the whole research aspect. I feel in this case, hey, you want to debate someone truly on privacy. And so I had said, we'll do it in a secure chat room. You're like, no.
Yeah,
why not? This is a secure chat room. What we're doing right now is a secure chat room. Anyone could join.
It's true. No, you're right.
It's like, hey, this is kind of like that.
I mean, it's secure in the way where the data in transit has confidentiality.
Yeah. Well, that was just kind of the little thing in terms of, about there is a difference between privacy and security. To me, if you want to have privacy, then you're taking security into account. Have to. Like, even if you say, hey, there's no information, well, that's to me the same thing as just turning off and unplugging the computer. You're just not going to connect. So,
or more directly, I think you're right. But to refine that, I would argue it's more like never having a computer, never having had.
Sure, you're just going to go completely, which is to me the most secure thing. You don't have anything out there, right? I mean, that's just my opinion. But I can our connection right now is secure. Facebook, regardless of all the nonsense that's going on with Cambridge Analytica and stuff like that, Facebook's data is secure.
Yeah.
I have not heard of a time outside of their little misconfiguration that was done through a bug bounty program with their AWS S3 bucket. Facebook has never been breached. They gave people like Cambridge Analytica access. That's not a breach. That might be an abuse of privileges. But I don't look at that as a breach because, hey, you sold them the access to the data, right? Facebook is secure. But they're not a privacy company.
No.
But I find probably something like Facebook to be much more, at least closer in alignment to your aspect of privacy, to where they're giving access to anyone, as long as you pay them.
Yeah, well, and even as a user, they give you privacy, in the way I perceive it, as a control. So, like, I can give you as a friend certain access, and friends of friends get a different level of access, so you can see different information. So they're just controlling the flow of information, which is exactly what they do with the companies. They're business-to-business integrations. They're just selling an information flow.
And so this is where I kind of go similar to at least my interpretation of your model. Facebook shouldn't have any of those controls. You put something out on Facebook, everyone has access.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I'll tell you where they really fucked up, man. All these companies is by ditching Alex Jones.
Oh yeah.
It's, to me, it's not free speech, right? They're not the government. You have no right or claim to free speech on somebody else's service. The problem is now, though, is they've positioned themselves as content police. And far worse than Facebook is YouTube. The amount of content, the sheer amount of content on there.
Yeah.
Or Twitch, Jesus Christ, man. The amount of content that's getting pushed through there.
Yeah.
So now you're saying that type of speech breaks the EULA, so you're going to deplatform them or demonetize them. Okay, that's your choice as a company. I disagree with the choice, but I support your choice to make, your ability to make that choice. Now, how are you going to decide what else fits that or what doesn't? And how are you going to justify that? Man, if I was a shareholder, I'd be fucking livid, because that's my point. Well said. You shouldn't be doing anything. You're providing a service and a platform. Stay out of the content. Let the market decide. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's some, as always, there's some unique circumstances, right? I'm not gonna allow the publishing of hate. And what I mean by that, some purposeful aspect of showing someone abusing someone else, right? That's just not, I'm not going to allow promotion of something like that. Like they're like, unless it's like, hey, I came across this video, someone needs to find this person because this person needs to go to jail, right? The difference between that versus just like, hey, we'll just say sex trafficking, the things like that are just, we know are already illegal.
I was just going to say, there's already laws, and you can't suborn crime. I mean, right. So you have an obligation to take care of that shit.
Right. And I think that there's too, like, here's a great, someone posted something silly on Twitter that, President Trump is the most corrupt president in history. I'm like, are you just saying that because he's the current president? Because if Hillary had become president, then she would have been the most corrupt. Oh, all these people just went flaming. I'm like, whatever, because she's never been prosecuted and gone to jail for anything. Hey, yet.
Yeah, right. She ain't dead.
All right. So, and at the flip side, now those people are all on the complete, you're an idiot, going, oh, just because someone has a doctorate doesn't mean they're that smart. Hey, you didn't quite understand where I was going, and I didn't respond. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So the flip side, someone else talking and comparing President Trump being one of the greatest leaders like Lincoln. I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. And this is going, and this particular person was going at, basically doing it because, the Democrats called Abraham Lincoln a tyrant and all this kind of stuff. And we're calling, President Trump that. I'm like, there is a huge difference between President Lincoln and President Trump.
Yeah.
Like, they're not even in it. That's like talking about, hey, I'm a Major League Baseball player and I'm going into the Hall of Fame, and then talking about someone who is a great cornhole champion.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Wiffle ball.
Yeah, wiffle ball. Right.
By the way, it's about time Pete Rose gets inducted. For the
I never believed he should not have been.
Yeah, I agree.
So
this is why scientific thinking is important, because what we ought to do, which already exists, is create a framework with measures of effectiveness for presidency, and then you have a standardized approach to judge every single president against.
Right. So they're going on this stuff. I said, what great thing has President Trump done? Tell me one great. He's done everything he said he was going to do, but what was great? What made him great? And this person comes back, taxes, trade, blah, 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 blah. And I said, no. As a matter of fact, he is doing more to hurt trade through the tariffs. I'm here in Indiana. I gave a couple of links to these professors at Purdue. Purdue is internationally known when it comes to agriculture. I mean, that is that is the place people go to look at. And I know, because of the customers we serve in agriculture, the farmers are hurting because our biggest thing that we trade out to China, and we were China's #1 basically supplier of like soybeans and corn and pork.
Mm-hmm.
Those tariffs, our government is now having to give the farmers money so that way they can stay alive, because they put these tariffs on. That does not make good trade, because Brazil is now supplying China with the stuff because there's no tariff there.
Right. Well, and by the way, to add to exacerbate the situation, let's not forget where the money for those subsidies comes from.
Right. Back to us.
That's right.
So, and so again, I mean, and this is like the flip side of these things. So I don't know why people, I don't care about the claim of whether you're smart or not, whatever. Where's the dig down into the research? Now, Purdue publishes their stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I have free access to it. So I pulled up some of the things from the professor over there and sent it. And of course, she didn't reply back. But at least in this case, she's like, we don't have to agree. I'm like, no. But there was no malicious trading of barbs on Twitter. I said, I don't need, you don't have to agree with me. I certainly don't agree with you on your content. Like, putting President Trump and President Lincoln in the same sentence to me is absurd. One of the greatest, and we know one of the greatest leaders of our country. President Trump is nowhere close to that. And I'm not a supporter, nor am I someone that's so negative. I just call it how I see it. I was not a fan of President Obama, but I think he did some things well. Like, the notion of trying to have universal health care is quite noble. I don't think he did it the right way. I think he should have forced the states to come up with their own, or you're not going to get federal dollars. That way each state has a way of doing it. But at least that is something that I can say, whether you agree with it or not, he was at least trying to do something to help this country. And I say that as of still today, I would say President Obama has done a better job as president than President Trump.
Well, and an attempt was made to solve a problem and leave the country in a better state than it was when he started. So here's the thing too that I've noticed, especially recently, man, is there's this notion that we as a society are becoming dumber, right? There's all kinds of metaphors.
Well, how do you measure that aspect?
Well, there's different ways you can measure it. Now, I'll explain.
Well, before you do that, because I just recently read an article that says, on average, the United States population has 30 points higher in IQ today. Yes. Than it did 100 years ago.
That's right. And that's exactly the first thing I was going to bring up, are those studies. Because believe it or not, people want to dismiss it, but IQ is a reliable measure, and it's an absolute reliable predictor of future success. It's not even an argument in the literature anymore. That's how solved that problem is. So anyway, so we as a society want to argue that the metaphor of Idiocracy, which is an entertaining movie, and certainly you can draw some parallels to the current administration. And there's no discussion of how it's becoming that way. And people lose sight of the fact of probably the worst thing that Trump's administration has caused is this propensity to dismiss the other side as just being stupid. They voted for Trump because they're stupid, because there's no rationalization for it. Well, that's not true. I'm sure there's a lot of very intelligent people with high IQ that voted for Trump for reasons I don't know, and I don't know that I would understand it. I don't know that I care. You know what I mean? Because first of all, it doesn't change anything.
It changes nothing.
But to dismiss the opposition as simply being stupid is in effect what is leading to this popular misconception that we're becoming stupider when we're not. No study shows that.
Yeah, that's. I have not seen any study that shows that, and I kind of pay quite a bit of attention to these things specifically because I have kids, and I want to know that. I look at my oldest son. Things that him and I talk about. I don't think I didn't have access. And here's the thing. It comes back down to the amount of access to information and the critical thinking. Now, I don't believe the education system has given him his critical thinking skills. This is me challenging him constantly as a parent. The things he comes up with and his laid out plans, I'm going, I didn't have that kind of a plan when I was his age at 17. You know, my plan was I'm going to go play professional baseball. I'm good. I can hit. I can fast. I can do this. I can do this. This is what I'm doing. Never in a million years did I think I would ever, not do that. So while I pay attention because I don't agree with like Common Core. I don't think it's a good way. So I always, basically gave, my kids the way in which I was taught, and did that. So now they have both ways.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't say that what we're doing in general is wrong. We have so much more access to information than what we did. And therefore, the result is, of course, we're going to be, book smarter, which is in some ways why I would say, while the IQ is a measurement, some of the smartest people did not necessarily have high IQs. I think that your high IQ can really lead you to being a really good individual contributor, not necessarily someone that's really good at gathering the troops and actually producing something.
Oh, yes, certainly there's different roles. And it's certainly true that as you get to the opposite extremes of it is a bell curve, right? It's a normalized distribution of IQ. You develop pathology. On the extreme low side, you get mental retardation. On the extreme high side, you get forms of severe, like autism, for instance, right? Like savants. So it becomes more polarized.
So are we getting more people just because of the way our society is it being more savants to where they cannot socialize? And so does it matter if we're getting smarter if people are becoming more introverted?
No, I don't think so, man, because the average is still the average of IQ. You know what I mean? The vast majority of people are in that middle of the distribution. It's just that there's more people, so there's more people in the distribution.
Yeah, I hear you. I think about it, and this is just science. I read these things, but the older I get, the dumber I feel.
Well, yeah. Yeah, and it's not because you're becoming dumb. It's obviously because your world is proportionally increasing in size. And as that world increases in size, there's less of it you can know.
Right. I'm becoming more aware of the things that I just don't know.
Exactly.
But what do? I go out and I try to learn those things.
Well, you do what our training taught us to do, and that's ask good questions.
Yeah. And sometimes when I see this with my oldest, the way, because he questions everything, which is great. Sometimes I'm like, stop asking me these questions.
Yeah, well, like
you're asking questions. I was like, look, I know you're just trying to troll me, so let's stop.
Well, your youngest is probably going through this right now because mine and yours are around the same age of why. And what they're doing cognitively is starting to develop frames of reference. So that's why they want to know why something is. Now, they can't process a very meaningful explanation, but that's why as much as I can for as long as I can, man, I don't tell her stop asking me questions. Not at this age. When she's older, then I can say, well, look, you have this wonderful device. Go look it up. Tell me what you find, and then we'll have a discussion about it. But for right now, man, no, keep asking because I want your frame of reference to be as big as possible.
Very true.
Because otherwise, what you get, and I'm sure you and I both know people like this, that their worldview, their world is this big, and it maybe gets to that for a variety of reasons. They're not educated.
They know everything.
Well, of course they do because their world's like the size of a fucking pea.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's proportionally smaller for a variety of reasons. They're not educated. They never traveled. They haven't gone out and done anything. They didn't try to innovate and challenge themselves. See, and I think that's what's one of the most damaging things about this profit structure with publishing is you're actually limiting who can contribute. And that's bad. That's by its nature bad for the generation of information.
But not just who can contribute, as to who can consume.
That's right. Both. Yes.
That's probably we're controlling who can have access, and we're controlling who can contribute. That's probably the worst model out there.
It's horrible. And if you want true innovation,
right? And there's already a model for how we know that didn't work. It was called the Catholic Church.
Yeah, exactly. Well said.
The truth still got out. Copernicus still proved that we were not the center of the universe.
Yeah.
Right? People forgot that.
Well, yeah.
And these publishers are doing the exact same thing. So anyway, my friend, I've got to get running. We spent too time on the pre-show.
That's all right, man. It was necessary. We hadn't talked in a while. Hey, my light problem resolved itself.
I told you. I took care of it.
like Thanos.
All right, my friends.
All right, everybody. That's 83 done.
Peace.
Bye.